looks like those numbers could get worse in terms of the economy. That a lot of the companies have been trying to eat those tariff increases so as not to pass it along to the consumer, so as not to irritate the president. But we're starting to see a little bit more of that.
And the president is about to hit 200 days since he returned to the White House, 200 turbulent days. In that time, he says he's bringing jobs back to America. He has certainly had a huge effect on the global trading system with those tariffs around the world. He says he's ended 6 wars. So what do the US public make of him? Let's speak to Jon McHenry, Vice President of the polling company North Star Opinion Research. Good evening to you, Jon.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. Well, tell us about the polling. President Trump keeps telling us he's immensely popular, but he's not quite as popular as he was, is he?
He's immensely popular within the Republican base, for sure. He has a net negative rating overall. If you sort of look at the average of all the polls, he's at 44% approve and 53% disapprove. So he's, probably not as popular as he wants to believe. But he's been very stable, really, since the beginning of May. His numbers started to erode on Liberation Day, April 2nd, when he announced all these tariffs would go into effect. And that sort of peaked at May. He had another spike in the middle of July, but he's really been fairly steady at 50 to 53% unfavorable since May.
We've seen, I saw a couple of figures saying that he's dropped a bit in terms of those poll ratings recently. What is it that is driving that? What are the big concerns of those voters? Does it come down to the economy, which has taken a bit of a hit from those global tariffs, though not as much as some people were predicting?
Right. And it looks like those numbers could get worse in terms of the economy, that a lot of the companies have been trying to eat those tariff increases so as not to pass it along to the consumer, so as not to irritate the president. But we're starting to see a little bit more of that. And that's really what it's down to. There's been a lot of talk in the US media about, isn't this about Jeffrey Epstein and, the not releasing the Epstein files. The Democrats who really want to see President Trump embarrassed already hate him, so their numbers really can't be affected. The independents don't pay attention to that kind of thing at all. And the Republicans who thought they wanted to see those files are just going to listen to President Trump. And if he says there's nothing there, then they're just going to say, okay, there's nothing there. What else are we going to talk about?
Well, as you mentioned it, Jeffrey Epstein, of course, was the convicted sex offender who died in prison. During the election campaign, President Trump said that he was going to open up all the files. Since he returned to the White House, he has not done so. And these questions about why he isn't doing this have really followed him around. There's been a lot of concern amongst a lot of his MAGA, Make America Great Again base. And as he was talking to the media tonight at the White House, reporters asked President Trump if his vice president, J.D. Vance, is hosting a gathering to talk about how to respond to this issue. President Trump had some choice words to describe the situation.
Is Vice President Vance hosting a gathering this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
Is he working on what?
Is he hosting some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw a report today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country, and that's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit. Okay?
Well, that was President Trump speaking tonight. But Jon, it does illustrate how this issue just isn't going away for him. How much is that breaking through to the wider public?
Really, not that much. Voters in the U.S. care much more about what's happening with inflation, what's happening with the tariffs. Is it going to impact jobs? I think 6 months from now, we'll look back at this and say the reports about it being more expensive to make a Ford in the United States because of tariffs on steel and aluminum than it is to import, say, a Toyota from Japan, is going to be a much bigger impact, especially in a state like Michigan, which we expect to be competitive in midterm elections. Those sorts of, bread and butter issues, economic issues, are going to be a lot more important than what seems at this point to sort of just be a diversion about what happened with Jeffrey Epstein.
How much is President Trump benefiting from the fact that the Democrats are really still reeling from their defeat at the last election? Still unclear who's going to be the new leader, who's going to be the torchbearer for the Democrats. And they don't seem to have really come up with a coherent strategy for opposing President Trump.
He's benefiting a huge amount from this array among the Democrats. For all the talk about President Trump and the tariffs and how he's handling immigration and criticism of him, the Democrats' favorable numbers are far, far worse than the president's numbers are. They're having a hard time learning the lesson of people just want you to talk about economics. They don't care about the social issues. To the extent they care about the social issues, they disagree with the Democrats on them. And they just, in part because it's very hard to have a coherent message when you don't have a standard bearer. A few years from now, when there's a new presidential race and whether it's J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio against whomever the Democrat is, then Democrats will really have a strong voice. At this point, they don't really have a coherent message and they don't have anyone to deliver it.
Jon McHenry, Vice President of North Star Opinion Research. Great to speak to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll show you. It's just another way to spend my money for the country. Anything I do is financed by me.